Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to fix latency in Voicemeeter. So you could also say how to fix delay in Voicemeeter. And I actually tried to cover a couple of solutions here, so make sure you check until the end to see if yours is in there. But first guys, if you want, you can go down on this video in the comment section and click on the first comment that I pinned. This will bring you to my Fiverr, and here you can get a YouTube logo and banner or a modern minimalist YouTube logo and banner for your YouTube channel. But now back to the video. Now in case you didn't know or just don't know much about latency, latency is when you hear your audio quite late, when your audio is a bit delayed or doubled, because the sound actually comes a couple of milliseconds to a second later. And so of course I'm going to go ahead and cover some solutions in order to reduce that latency in Voicemeeter. Now as you can see, I am in Voicemeeter Banana, but doesn't matter if you have the normal Voicemeeter, Voicemeeter Banana or Voicemeeter Potato. It's the same idea for all three, so don't worry about that. And so first of all, make sure all devices that you use have the same sample rate. It's going to show you that. I'm first going to minimize Voicemeeter here. And down here in the right bottom, I'm going to right click on the sound, do sound settings. Then I'm going to scroll down until I see more sound settings. Just going to close this, put this right here. So no matter if you use your microphone, your speakers, or any Voicemeeter input or output, they have to be the same sample rate. To do that, you actually want to go down. So this playback tab here is actually going to be your output. So you just select whatever you selected. You can go by default for your speakers. But once again, if you're using anything within Voicemeeter, for example, the cable input, in that case, you can also just do a little arrow here and do a default communication device or just your default device like I did with my speakers here. That's up to you if you want to change it to that, if you want to set it to that default and then click apply. There's a chance you don't hear my video, so just know which output you want to select. But what's most important here is if you right click, go to properties, I'm going to go to advanced. And here as you can see it's set to 24-bit, 48,000 Hz studio quality. Now that's very important. The alternative to that could also be 16-bit, 48,000 Hz DVD quality. But I would say in a lot of cases you can just leave it at this. Go ahead and select that and do apply. And then of course same if you use your speakers. Just go to properties again and advanced. And here as you can see it will be the same 24-bit, 48,000 studio quality. Now down here, you actually have the choice to take exclusive control of this device and also use exclusive mode. This could actually also help in some cases if you have latency. Just play around with that, see if it works and then click apply. And this down here, the audio enhancement, doesn't really matter. You can leave this checked or unchecked. Just have to see if that does anything for you. And at the end of the page, make sure you click apply and then OK. So then when I'm in Voicemeeter itself, you want to go up to menu, go down to system settings. And as you can see, once again here, we will find back the sample rate. It is all set to 48,000 Hz here. So that's very important. Make sure that whatever you see here, the value is 48,000 Hz. If once again, you selected that earlier in the Windows settings. And if you just go a bit more down, we will see the preferred main sample rate in Voicemeeter. And this is why you can also select it and change it. So you can click on it. Now there are cases where you can also go for 44,100. That is an option. But do keep in mind that you also have to go back into your Windows sound settings as we did and set everything to 44,100 as well. So also make sure that in Windows it will be the same as I showed you earlier. So make sure that everywhere you go for 44,100. It all has to be the same. Now as I said, in my case I do 48,000 Hz because I prefer it a little bit better. It's a bit better quality. It's also often used in music, so I like to go for 48,000 Hz and then just make sure that everything has that same value. Now when you add an input in Voicemeeter, so you just have to click here. In most of the cases want this input to be a WDM. That's actually quite important. And then of course you select the microphone in question. Now mine is the microphone Blue Yeti, so I would choose this one. But just know in most cases for your input, so most of the time your microphone, it is advised to go for WDM. Now if you're running into any problems, you can also go for MME, alternate between the two. Maybe MME would actually work better for you. So that's something you have to check as well. That could also be a cause of the problem. And of course in case as well, if you have any audio sound card, like a mixer, you can select that one as well if you want to. And so I am going to select my input. And as you can see, there we have our signal. Then we're going to go over to A1, which is going to be the output. It's going to be the opposite basically. Here you want to make sure that most of the time it's going to be a MME and then your speaker. So I just want to hear it through my speakers. You can also select the cable input, or if you want to hear it through your screen, for example, the sound, you can select that one as well. But I will just go for my speakers. So in this case, my headphones. It is selected to MME. And if you are hesitant, you can also alternate once again with WDM. And of course, you do have that option to select your sound card as well. And so there you go, I also have my output. Now if you want to hear yourself, make sure that once again the output on A1 is set to your speakers. So in this case, as I said, it's my headphones. And then you want to select A1. Now I can hear myself right now, which is obviously something I don't want in this case. But if you want to actually hear yourself, to also check the latency, of course, which is very important, make sure you select A1. And if you want to stop hearing yourself in Voicemeeter, of course, make sure that that A1 is off, like it is right now. Or you could also go to A1, once again, most of the time go from MME and select, for example, the cable input. That way you don't constantly hear yourself and the audio will go through a different source. So in this case, the cable input. Okay, so now I want to go back to menu, once again to the system settings. This is going to be an important step. We're going to go to the Voicemeeter buffering. Now, depending on what what you choose earlier, so for the input. So whether it's MME or WDM, here's where you want to change the value. Now this is going to be an important step in reducing the latency in Voicemeeter, because the buffer size plays a big role in that. So what you want to do then, because I did WDM, I'm going to select this one. I'm just going to give you this message, but don't worry. It basically says that you shouldn't have to change the settings, but if you want to, you can, which is what we're going to do. So click OK. And now by default is set to 512 samples. And if you're running into this latency problem, so this delay problem, you want to bring this down. And I would say oftentimes go down towards like 256 samples. You can go lower than that, but watch out. This can cause your audio to start crackling as well. So you're going to have a crackling sound if you put this too low. So I don't really advise you to put it here. If you are able to do so and you're not running into any problems, that's good for you. Really test that around, but in most cases really don't go too low here. I wouldn't say go under 256 samples. Very important. Now also very important, if you're using any other devices, so for example you have a sound card, so your mixer, which is an audio device that you might have. Okay, so as you can see I just opened mine. Now this is the software application of my Steinberg sound card, and as you can see the buffer size is set to 256 samples. So in that case, if I go back to Voicemeeter, now as I said I have a WDM input for my microphone, so I'm going to select this one. I would also have to select it to 256 samples. Very important that they are the same value. And also if I go to this other window, as you can see my sample rate is set to 48,000 kilohertz, just like it is right here and on all these channels here. So once again I insist upon it, but that's because it's very important. If you select Voicemeeter to 48,000 hertz, make sure that everything else, your sound card and in Windows, as we saw in the beginning of this video, to 48,000 kilohertz. It all has to be the same. Very important. Now if you're listening to speakers on your desktop and headphones at the same time, so you have multiple outputs, which you can do here by the way. So you can for example do A1 to your headphones and then A2 to set of speakers that you have. So having those multiple Voicemeeter outputs at the same time can also create the possibility that you get some delay, of course, so the latency. Now in that case, you can compensate that delay if you go to the monitoring synchro delay and change the value. Now I am only using A1, so I'm going to do A1, but if you use A2 or A3, make sure you change that as well. I'm just using A1. And so here you can change the value just by clicking. Now I would start at like 50 or maybe 100 to start off, really see what it does and also test around for you what works best. So you're basically purposely gonna add some other delay to make sure that it compensates once again. Now another thing you can do is set the WDM input exclusive mode to yes instead of no. Now I can do that right now, but if you want to, you can select it here. Or you can do the opposite. If it's selected to yes, you can also test around to put it on no, which is an option that we saw also earlier within the Windows sound settings. Now this will also change the buffer size up here of all these channels, which of course you can just bring back down once again right here in case it changes. Underneath that as well, the engine mode, mine is set to normal, but you can once again, for example, alternate between Swift. So you have the option to do normal or Swift. Change around. Once again, if yours is on Swift, test normal. If yours is on normal, test Swift. This can likewise help with the latency problems, but also the crackling noises that you might have. Now something else important that I wanted to mention, that sometimes it's not Voicemeeter's fault that there is a latency problem or delay. It could also be in other software that you're using, like for example Discord or any other communication software. Because your voice might be doubled for nothing, so maybe you have to turn off something in a Discord. That is also a possibility. So Voicemeeter might not always be where the latency problem comes from. It could also be settings within, once again, a software like Discord, but also it could be like a game, for example, where you connected the audio to. No matter what it is, if something exterior to Voicemeeter could also be the cause. It's not even necessarily Voicemeeter itself. So do keep that in mind as well, very important. It's a little detail, but don't overlook it. And lastly, I wanted to mention something that I've briefly mentioned in this video as well. There could also be cases that you don't necessarily have like a latency or delay problem, but more like a static noise, crackling sound that is coming from Voicemeeter. Now I do actually already have a video about that on my channel. Now if you want to check it out, it's up here in the right corner or down in the description below. So if you're running rather into a, as I said, like crackling sound, noise coming from a microphone kind of problem, make sure you check out that video. That could actually also help a lot, since I talk about other solutions in that video. But in any case, I had to mention here what I wanted to mention about the latency and delay problem in Voicemeeter. Now keep in mind that if by the end you reduced your latency, but it's still not perfect, let's say, that doesn't really matter, because it doesn't have to be an exact direct signal per se. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of latency, of course, as long as it is not too much. So just make sure that if you have some latency, it's at a minimum, that it doesn't bother you and the listeners. So once again, use the fixes in this video to bring down that latency as much as possible. In any case, guys, hope this video helped. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Please, if you like, would be really nice. Subscribe would also be really nice. Hope to see you guys in my next video. Bye.